Rachmaninoff wrote a lot of piano music that was very difficult to play. He made full use of his unusually large hands and his high level of technical skill. And these chords I'm playing now, and the variation on them towards the end of the piece when they're more fleshed out, which I'll show you now. Are voiced in a particular way to give them a particular character. This piece, Prelude in C# minor, was nicknamed the Bells of Moscow because of the chiming quality that the chords have. This chord progression could have been expressed in a much simpler way that was much easier to play. But then this piece would have lost some of the character that it has, and it probably wouldn't have earned the nickname that it did. So why is it our guitar heroes are often name-called as fret wankers when they play things that are difficult? Even I've been called a fret wanker by a sound engineer when I was doing a sound check at a gig once. Whereas pianists like Rachmaninoff, Liszt, violinists like Paganini only receive endless praise for their abilities on their respective instruments.
I think this problem of the word shred and its negative connotations has to be approached in two ways. Firstly, accept that you'll never escape that stigma. As long as you play fast, somebody will have a problem with it. But you can minimise that with approach number two, which is to make sure that you don't become the stereotype that the critic has in mind. We've all seen plenty of videos in a similar setting to this in somebody's bedroom. Some guy sat on the end of his bed doing sweep picking up and down all day, totally unmusically. And any of us who has learned the ability to play fast, to play technically difficult stuff, has at some point shredded unmusically. We've all been guilty of it. And that clearly is one of the origins of this stereotype. So I'm going to give you my top 5 tips of how to remain musical while shredding. Number 1, give every note a purpose. It sounds pretty cliched, but it is sound advice. And I don't mean that every note has to be a big, slow, soulful experience. After all, this video is talking about how we can play fast in our improvisation and remain interesting and musical. What I mean is, every note has got a use. It's had some of your attention. Even if it's just a passing note. That's a run that I do quite a lot. And the main notes going on there are really F sharp, B, another F sharp, another B, another F sharp, and another B. All those notes strung together would be pretty boring, but it's the passing notes that really give the lick the flavour that it's got. Those semitones give it kind of an exotic flavour. So there's no reason a fast run with well selected notes that have been chosen to fulfill a purpose can't be interesting. Number 2, try not to repeat yourself too much. That lick that I played a moment ago is kind of one of my signature licks, and I don't mean to say that it's unique to me. My written signature is similar to many people's all over the world, just as yours will be. Your signatures don't need to be unique to you, they just make up part of what makes your style yours. And this lick is one of those that makes up my style. But I can't use it all the time, otherwise people would get pretty bored of it. Yeah, I'm going to use that lick and variations upon it quite regularly because it is part of my style. But play on it too much, use it in every single solo, and you're going to get boring pretty quick. And when I say make variations upon those signatures, I mean you can use the same notes, you can use the same concept, but try and phrase it in a different way. So that lick that I showed you, I've been doing it in a sliding way. But sometimes I'll start from my little finger and kind of fall down the scale with a sweeping feel to it. So that kind of a thing. Number 3, repeat yourself. Now I know what you're thinking, that's a direct contradiction to number 2. But people like repetition, and there's a big difference between repeating yourself to the point of becoming boring, perhaps because you don't have enough in your lick arsenal, and repeating things in an interesting way. Sequences are very popular, which is a repetition of the same melody at different scale points or in different octaves or whatever, but it's the same shape, it's the same melody line. Let me give you an example on the B and E strings. So that was essentially just the same melody moving up in sequence, and that kind of thing is quite good for creating memorable melodies and for building some suspense. Another popular one is rising diminished arpeggios. Number 4, abuse your strengths and forget your weaknesses. Nobody wants to hear your weaknesses when you're improvising or live, so you can forget those for the time being. Sure, when you're practicing, work on your weaknesses, but when you're practicing, focus on your strengths as well, because if you abuse those strengths, if you further them, you'll find that you can unlock some things that are unique to yourself and that you're better at than anybody else. You don't want to be competing with people who are experts in their field when you're not an expert in their field, if you like. I try not to compete with sweep pickers who are very good, because I'm not the best sweep picker in the world. But if I were to slow down the kind of lick that I like to do from one of my tracks, I'll play it real slow like this. I think that sped up makes a pretty interesting sound. So absolutely work on those strengths and incorporate them into your improvisation and into your shredding, because they're going to come so much more easily than anything that you're trying to recreate that doesn't come naturally to you. And finally, number 5, make your melodies interact with harmony, i.e. play over a backing track. It's useful for gear reviews to just have the guitar signal on its own, and a lot of the time when you practice you'll probably just be playing and practicing technique and things like that, but when you're trying to be musical, it's best to have some music behind you. Guitar melodies are not as interesting with no chords underneath. If you just play one note and change the chord progression underneath that one note, the sound will change, the flavour will change dramatically. And the reason I chose this backing track near the start of the video for me to play over was to demonstrate this fact better. So the key is C Lydian. And they're the main chords near the start, and there's a section where the E minor 7 changes to E minor 6, so there's a C sharp introduced, which is generally not in C Lydian or E minor. If you prefer to minorize your shapes and to understand things, playing them in a minor shape, C Lydian is the same as E natural minor, so the E minor 7 changes to an E minor 6. So at that point, when you're improving, you don't want to be playing a C over that E minor 6, because that will sound horrible. And it's not cheating to listen to the backing track first. That's more realistically what's going to be happening in a live scenario anyway. You'll have rehearsed whatever you're going to play, you'll know what chords are going to be underneath what you're going to be playing. And it's better if you are, like a lot of people watching this video, the type to go on YouTube, type in guitar backing track and stick one on. It's better to listen to the backing track, use your ear, use a little bit of theory to work out what notes you want to use, what notes you might want to accent or miss out when a certain chord hits, if it's outside of the normal key, if there's a note inside that chord that's outside of the normal key, if it's a bit weird. It's better to work it out that way than to scroll down to the comment section and find the guy who says, everybody should play this in G Mixolydian, but when this chord comes up, change this note for that note, because that is cheating. You know, work it out yourself. Use your ear. Do a bit of ear training. Do a bit of theory usage. And even if you don't know what chords are coming up in a backing track, or in a band situation in a jam, or even if you don't know what key it's in, that's no bad thing. It's a good chance to train your ear. I regularly play to backing tracks, and I don't know what key it's going to be in. You just play along with it. Sometimes you can just tell from hearing. I mean, if you're a perfect pitch kind of person, then look at you. I'm pretty good at picking out pitches. I'm good with my relative pitch. But just playing along and working out where you are. If you hit a bum note, bend to a right one, slide to a right one. If you're playing in normal diatonic Western mode world, then as Guthrie Govan says, you're only ever one note away from a right one. So if you're a guitarist and you like to play fast, take stock of my 5 tips. If you want to play a million notes in a solo, you might as well make sure that they're a good million notes. And if you do that, your improv, your soloing and your songwriting will improve.